You're in a normal conversation. Everyone laughs, everyone agrees, the moment passes. But you caught it. You caught the shift in tone halfway through the sentence. You caught the glance that went in the wrong direction at the wrong time. You noticed the story had too many details or not enough. You noticed that this person's behavior today wasn't the same as it was 2 weeks ago, and no one else around seemed to pick up on it. Everyone moved on. You stayed there like, all right, on the outside, normal. On the inside, your mind had already processed everything. You don't need proof. You don't need someone to confirm it. You feel the intention behind the words before you even process what was said. You see the falseness before you can even name it. You notice when someone has changed, and you know that change means something. While most people listen, you read, and that never turns off. Let's go. You're sitting in a group conversation. It could be dinner, a meeting, a casual chat after work. The situation is light. People are relaxed. Then someone starts talking, just a story, an explanation, a comment about something that happened, and you listen, but not just listen. You observe. Your mind is already working before you even realize it. The story has details that don't line up. One part was rushed, exactly the part that should have carried more weight. Another part was over-explained, like it needed to convince. And there was a specific word, a strange choice, that didn't match how this person usually speaks. The tone didn't match the words. You didn't interrupt. You didn't question. You just stayed there, absorbing everything, piece by piece, while everyone else nodded and followed along. But you were seeing something else. You were seeing the intention behind what was being said. Not what the person wanted you to hear, what they actually wanted from that conversation. And those two things weren't the same. Then you remembered, 3 weeks ago, this same person was different, more open, more direct. Now there's a new layer in the way they communicate, a calculated distance, a forced lightness, an edited version of themselves being presented as if it were the original. You caught the change. Not today. You had already caught it before. Today just confirmed it. I didn't say anything, but I noticed. The conversation ended. Everyone went their own way. You walked away with a complete mental file. Details, patterns, inconsistencies that no one asked you to build. But your mind assembled on its own, in real time, while you smiled and played along. And now you're here, running it all back again. Not because you want to, because you can't not do it. This won't leave my head. And the heaviest part, you're almost never wrong. If you're watching this right now, you've probably lived this scene more than once. With friends. With coworkers. With someone close to you. The situation changes, the people change, but the process inside you is always the same. You walk into a conversation and walk out with far more information than anyone else in the room. Not because you went looking for it, because your mind picks up everything automatically. The falseness hidden behind a smile. The real intention behind a simple request. The behavioral shift that everyone ignored but you logged with date and time. It's like you don't even have to try. You're just there and you've already seen everything. And the strangest part is, you grow up thinking everyone works like this. That everyone notices these things. That reading intention behind words, sensing when someone has changed, feeling when a smile isn't real, that it's normal. It's not. Most people process the surface. You process what's underneath the surface. It's always been like that, and it probably always will be. The problem isn't what you see. It's the weight of seeing all of this, and not having anyone who understands what it's like to live this way. Now let me tell you something that will probably sound different from what you expect to hear. You don't see too much because something is wrong with you. You see too much because at some point in your life, you had to. Your mind didn't develop this radar by accident. It developed because it learned that paying attention to details was necessary, that reading intentions behind words prevented bad situations, that noticing changes in behavior before anyone else protected you from being caught off guard. It was a mechanism. And it worked. The problem is that protection mechanisms don't know when to stop. They don't distinguish real threats from everyday conversations. They don't separate someone who is genuinely fake from someone who's just having a bad day. So the radar stays on. Everywhere, with everyone, all the time. And then, what once protected you starts to isolate you. What used to be a skill turns into a filter that distorts everything. Because when you train your mind to find falseness, hidden intention, and behavioral changes, it will find them, always, even where they might not exist. Let me explain what's happening. No complications. Your mind was trained by life, by experiences, by the people who passed through it, to operate on a level most people don't. It learned to read layers. And now it does that automatically, without you asking. When someone speaks, you don't just process the content. You process the whole package. The tone, the rhythm, the choice of words. What changed since the last time this person spoke to you? What their body is saying while their mouth says something else. And that's where the three things show up always together. You catch the falseness first, not as a judgment, as a feeling. Something doesn't add up. The version being presented doesn't match what you've already observed about that person. And your mind registers it before you even have words to describe it. Then comes the intention. You start asking why. Why this story now? Why this tone? What does this person want me to think, feel, or do after this conversation? You read the movement behind the words, and you almost always find something. And the behavioral shift ties everything together, because you don't analyze people in isolated moments. You have a mental history of each important person in your life. How they act, how they speak, how they react. And when something deviates from that pattern, even slightly, you feel it. Something doesn't add up here. The problem isn't that you're wrong for feeling all of this. The problem is that your mind doesn't have a pause button. It grabs a signal and runs with it, filling in gaps, building hypotheses, searching for confirmation. And when you spend too much time inside that loop, the Tao stops being about other people and starts being about you. But let's talk about what really weighs on you. It's not even seeing the falseness. It's not picking up on hidden intentions. It's not noticing that someone changed while everyone else keeps treating them like they're the same person. What weighs on you is carrying all of that without being able to speak. Because you've tried. At some point, you tried to share what you noticed with someone, and the response was a strange look. I think you're overthinking. Stop thinking so much, as if the problem were your perception, not the behavior you were describing. It's like, I don't even know how to explain it, so you learn to hold it in, to observe in silence, to archive everything internally and wait for time to confirm what you already knew. And time almost always does. But that waiting has a cost. The cost is that you start relating to people with a layer of distance that you put there yourself. Not out of coldness, out of precaution. You've seen too much falseness to open up completely. You've picked up on too many hidden intentions to trust quickly. You've observed too many behavioral shifts to believe that what you see today will be the same tomorrow. So you hold back. A part of you always stays outside observing. You just feel it. And it gets weird. And the cruelest part is that people around you don't understand where that distance comes from. They feel like you're closed off, difficult, complicated. But you're not closed, you're careful. There's a huge difference between the two, and almost no one sees it. Then comes the heaviest part of all. Doubting yourself. Because after so long catching falseness, reading intentions, and tracking behavioral changes, you start to question whether your filter is still reliable, whether you're still seeing reality or building a distorted version of it. Maybe I'm overthinking, but that sentence. How many times have you said it to yourself? In the middle of a mental replay your mind started on its own at 2 a.m. about a conversation that happened days ago? You get stuck between two things that both feel equally true. On one side, I know what I noticed. I know what I saw. My radar is almost never wrong. On the other, what if this time I'm wrong? What if I'm creating a problem that doesn't exist? What if the issue is me? This internal conflict doesn't show up once. It shows up every time, with every person. In every situation where you pick up something others didn't. And the exhaustion that comes from this isn't the kind of tired you get from doing too much. It's the kind that comes from thinking too much, from processing too much, from carrying, once again, a weight that no one around you even knows you're carrying. I keep thinking about it, like over and over, not because you want to. Because you don't know how to stop. So let me tell you something. You've spent your entire life being the only one in the room who sees what's underneath, who catches the falseness before it reveals itself, who reads the real intention while everyone else accepts the version being presented, who notices behavioral shifts weeks before any consequences show up. And at some point you started to believe that this was a burden, but it's not. The problem was never seeing too much. The problem was seeing too much in a world that taught you to doubt what you see. Every time someone said, "You're overreacting," and later reality proved you weren't, a part of you should have learned to trust yourself more. But instead, you learn to stay quiet. And that's how the most precise tool you have turned into a source of anxiety. Not because it's weak, because it was never validated. You don't need to shut off what you see. You need to stop apologizing for seeing it. What you have, this ability to read what's beneath the surface, is rare. And when you learn to trust it without letting it turn into obsession, everything changes. You don't overthink. You process differently. And there's a huge difference between the two. The question I want to leave you with is this. Has there ever been a time when you picked up on something, falseness, hidden intention, a behavioral shift that everyone around you ignored, and later it turned out exactly the way you felt it would? I don't know. Does that happen to you too? Tell me in the comments. I'm not sure there are many people with this. Let's call it a superpower. See you in the next one. Bye.